Picture this. It's the middle of winter, 40,000 years ago. Outside your cave, freezing winds race across an endless ice age plain. Snow swallows everything it touches. One mistake out there, and you don't come back. But inside, a fire crackles in the center of your shelter. Someone is telling the same hunting story they've told dozens of times before. A child laughs. An old woman smiles as she slowly rubs warm animal fat across her cracked hands. You do the same. For the first time in days, your skin doesn't hurt. Right now, at this exact moment, your brain is experiencing something remarkable. Luxury. Not comfort, not survival. Luxury. Because despite what most people imagine, ancient humans weren't obsessed only with staying alive. They wanted beauty, status, rare things, and moments that made life feel bigger than survival itself. The strange part? The things they considered luxurious might completely change the way you think about wealth today. For most of history, we've imagined prehistoric humans as exhausted survivors. Always hungry, always cold, always one bad hunt away from death. That's only half the story. Yes, survival was difficult, but surviving wasn't the final goal. The moment people had even a little extra time, they spent it creating beauty. And archaeologists keep finding proof. Around 40,000 years ago, during the Ice Age, people across Europe were carving tiny beads from mammoth ivory. Not crude decorations. Beautiful, polished ornaments. Each single bead could take several hours to finish. Now imagine wearing a necklace made from 60 or 70 of them. That's hundreds of hours of work. Hundreds. Time that could have been spent making tools, collecting food, or repairing shelters. Instead, someone chose to create something simply because it looked beautiful. That's one of humanity's earliest luxury items. Not because it helped you survive, but because it made you feel important. Then archaeologists uncovered something even stranger. In Russia, at a site called Sungir, they found two children buried over 30,000 years ago. Their graves contained more than 10,000 carved ivory beads. Thousands. Each handmade. Each requiring hours of labor. Those children also wore bracelets, fox-tooth pendants, and elaborate ornaments unlike anything most people around them possessed. Think about what that means. Entire communities invested incredible amounts of time creating beautiful objects for children. Luxury existed long before kings, long before cities, long before money. But humans didn't stop at jewelry. Our own bodies became works of art. For hundreds of thousands of years, people collected bright red ochre, crushed it into powder, mixed it with animal fat, and painted their skin. It wasn't camouflage. Bright red doesn't hide you. It made you stand out. Later came tattoos, scarification, decorative teeth, piercings, even deliberate skull shaping in some cultures. These changes were painful, permanent, sometimes dangerous. So why do them? Because your body was something nobody could steal. In a world where possessions could disappear overnight, your appearance became your greatest display of identity and status. Food was another form of luxury. Today, expensive restaurants impress us with tiny portions and elegant presentation. Ancient humans had a different strategy. They impressed people with abundance. Across many hunter-gatherer societies, successful hunters organized enormous communal feasts. Imagine finally bringing down a mammoth or a giant wild bull and feeding your entire community. It wasn't just generosity. It was a public announcement. I made this happen. Luxury wasn't eating alone. Luxury was having enough to share with everyone. Because nothing displayed power better than feeding people when food was never guaranteed. Then humans settled down. Agriculture changed everything. Villages became towns. Towns became civilizations. And luxury became visible everywhere. At Çatalhöyük, one of the world's oldest farming communities, many houses looked nearly identical from the outside. But inside, the differences were astonishing. Some families decorated their walls with paintings. Others rebuilt and replastered their floors over and over again. Some created beautiful interiors that required hundreds of extra hours of labor. The house wasn't the luxury. The decoration was. Sound familiar? Thousands of years later, people still renovate kitchens and living rooms simply because they want beautiful spaces. Maybe we've changed less than we think. Luxury also traveled. Long before highways, before ships crossed oceans, before written language, people exchanged rare materials across astonishing distances. Amber from the Baltic Sea, obsidian from distant volcanoes, shells carried hundreds of miles inland. These objects weren't useful enough to justify the effort. Their value came from one simple fact: they were rare. Owning something from a place nobody else had ever seen made you special. Even today, that's exactly how luxury brands work. Exclusivity creates value. Ancient humans understood that thousands of years before marketing departments did. But luxury always had a darker side. As civilizations grew larger, wealth became concentrated. Palaces appeared. Kings emerged. Elites demanded more elaborate displays of power. Some ancient rulers were buried with unimaginable treasures: gold, jewelry, musical instruments, weapons. Even human attendants sacrificed to accompany them into the afterlife. Suddenly, luxury wasn't just about beauty. It became a symbol of inequality. For every masterpiece created, someone had to build it. For every magnificent palace, someone spent years carrying the stones. Luxury had always inspired wonder. Now it also reflected power, and sometimes cruelty. Perhaps the greatest luxury ancient humans ever possessed wasn't an object at all. It was time. Modern people often imagine hunter-gatherers working every waking hour. Surprisingly, many traditional hunter-gatherer societies spent only a few hours each day gathering food. The rest of their lives included conversation, storytelling, music, craftsmanship, games, watching the sunset beside a fire. Agriculture eventually produced more food, but it also demanded more labor. People worked longer, stored more, owned more, and worried more. Ironically, some of the earliest farmers may have had fewer moments of true leisure than the hunters who came before them. Maybe time has always been the rarest luxury. So, what was luxury for ancient humans? It wasn't gold. It wasn't castles. It wasn't designer clothing. Luxury was warmth after days of freezing. A necklace that took months to carve. A body decorated with symbols of belonging. A feast large enough to feed everyone. A beautifully painted home. A rare shell carried across continents. An evening with enough free time to tell stories around a fire. Luxury has never really been about objects. It's about escaping necessity. For one brief moment, feeling like life is bigger than survival. That's why humans painted caves. That's why they carved ivory beads during the Ice Age. That's why they built monuments that lasted thousands of years. And that's why today, we still chase beautiful things that serve no practical purpose. Because somewhere deep inside us, our minds haven't changed very much. The next time you buy something simply because it makes you smile, or decorate your home, or save for a watch, a painting, or a dream vacation, remember this: 40,000 years ago, someone sat beside an Ice Age fire, carefully carving a tiny ivory bead for hours. Not because they needed it, but because being human has never been about surviving alone. It's been about finding beauty, even in the harshest world imaginable. And perhaps, that has always been our greatest luxury.